What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and I just want to send a big thank you for everyone who's been following or subscribing or liking the videos, all of that good stuff. Like, it means a lot to me and I really appreciate it, so thank you so much. So today I wanted to quickly talk about how I prepare for recording a mix or if I'm doing a live set. This is really coming, I just wanted to share this today because it's April 8th. We just had a solar eclipse, and it's also a new moon today, and we've been dealing with, or at least I've been dealing with, Mercury retrograde, which has fucked me up all kinds of ways. And I wanted to use this opportunity because I actually recorded a mix to be released today, like 2 weeks ago. But for some reason, when I was trying to find it this morning to get it all ready, it completely vanished. I can't find it. I can't find a playlist that I used. It's nowhere. So I have to start from ground up. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about how I prep that. So there are two ways that I do very differently in different scenarios. So when I'm recording a mix at home, there's obviously no audience in front of me. There's nothing really for me to feed off of any energy. So what I usually do is put a container or a playlist together, probably around 20 to 25 tracks, because most of my mixes are about an hour long. And depending on when I want to cut which track out and stuff like that, it's going to range from the duration. And so from the container, I then listen to it and see all the songs, and I first think of is there a theme that I'm trying to go with? Is there a story I'm trying to tell? Because if you've listened to any of my mixes, I would say 90% of my mixes has some story behind it or is telling a story while you listen to it, is because I use a lot of vocals in my mixes. And I tend to utilize those vocals to then tell some type of story. So yeah, I'm trying to look for the two, like, what am I trying to say? What do I want to say? And sometimes it just comes naturally. It's not even something I'm thinking about. It's just a way I'm positioning the tracks. And then I listen to it after. I'm like, holy shit, like this story exactly how I was feeling at the time of recording it. So I think that's just to say that a lot of my stuff is definitely coming from the heart. Like it's just coming from the love of music, and I'm just loving these tracks and I want to share it. And it's the energy behind it that kind of then comes together and tells a story. So once I have that container or playlist, what I'm usually looking at is starting from some sort of tempo or BPM, beats per minute, and then taking it from there. So I'll have a list, then I'll rearrange tracks and I'll remove some or replace some or whatever it is. But I'll make sure I rearrange it so I know, okay, I want to start with this track. I always want a starter point, and I always want to know what my end track is going to be. I'm going to leave it a little open throughout, but majority of the time I'm ready to have them positioned in the, I want this to be track 3 or track 5 or whatever it is. It's already positioned in a way, and I'm leaving the transition up for me to do live. And why I do that is because, like I said, there's no energy for me to feed off of when I'm recording at home. It's just for me and me. And so it's sometimes it's really hard for me to then like have a more impactful or thoughtful set if I'm not actually pre-arranging that when I'm recording a live set. When I'm actually doing a live event, that's completely different of how I set my setup. So I usually do my research on the event first of like, what kind of event is it? What type of people are coming? What's their vibe? What do they usually like to listen to? Who are the other DJs that are going to be playing? And what kind of venue? Usually the venue will tell you a lot of what kind of night it's going to be. And so after that researching, I'll again put a playlist together. Usually that is probably around like ranging from 50 to 150 tracks in a playlist for me to have, like, maybe those are the newest tracks or tracks that I'm really vibing right now that I want to play. So I make sure that's all in there. And then I kind of keep it free for all with all my other playlists. And that is because I'm vibing off of the audience. The real life feedback I'm going to then use to then choose my next song, transitions and all that kind of stuff. Like every set I do live, it's never the same because it depends on the crowd. So that is how I usually do it. And some people ask me about, like, do I stick with BPMs and am I a stickler for mixing and key? So for the first one, BPM, it again depends on where you're at when you're playing live, what time your set is at, of when you need to choose your BPM. So for example, if you're the opener, you should be starting really low and soft. So most nights I'm a house DJ, so most of the time I'm like the lowest I'll probably start at is maybe 120. Sometimes I'll go to 118. It just really depends how long the event I need to prep. It's also you want to start at a lower so that you can build that energy. You want to build that tension up to the peak. Peak is when the headliner is on or when the club is going to be packed. Usually at peak time, your BPMs is roughly between 127 to 130, give or take a few. And then after hours is a tricky one because it really depends on what kind of after hours event it is. Sometimes your after hours event is like super hard, like it's a continuation of the night. And so sometimes it can go from 128 to like 140, like we're really pushing it. Or sometimes it's a wind down after hours where you want to stick within the 128 and then slowly come down to maybe 125, 124. Again, this is not like something that like we stick with, DJs stick with. It's just, you got to feel the vibes, you got to feel the energy, you got to do your research, and then you kind of go and vibe with that way. And so BPM, it's kind of like a loose change for me. It doesn't really matter. But for recorded sets, I definitely want to know what my starting BPM is and then what I want to end that playlist or set at. So usually, again, I'll still start very low. Again, from 115 to 120 is usually where I start my sets. Sometimes it'll be 120 and 124 between that. And then I'll start inclining into up to 126, 128, sometimes even up to 130. So that's just how I like to do my mixes. It could be totally up to you. And now on to mixing key. This is like some DJs really are stricklers about this, which they will stick with one key or they're going to follow that key wheel or whatever it's called, because then there's parameters that you know what to stick with that will sound good as long as you stick in those keys. For me, I've been like doing this for so long and I love music. It's really knowing your music and your library and just having a good intuition and vibe for it. I don't tend to even look at key most of the time, especially if I'm playing live. Like, I'll just know that this song, after listening to or previewing it, I'm like, yeah, this is going to go great after this because of the energy of the vibe of the crowd. If I'm doing a recorded set, I will look at the key sometimes if it's when I'm like pre-arranging the location of the tracks. If it doesn't sound completely right, I'll then look, it's because this is completely off key. But for the most part, I think once you practice a lot, once you train your ear, you just will know, and you'll know if it's in key or not. And there are like no-nos and stuff like that. But again, I think, for me, it's never about sacrificing what I want to play based on BPM or key. If that's what I truly feel is the right song or right track after, I'm going to play it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Sometimes not everything works, but most of the time, like, I know, like, because I'm previewing it, that's going to sound good. And so this is all up to you and how you want to present yourself as a DJ, your style, your genre and what you want to follow, what makes sense to you, what makes it easy for you, and then just going by that. Like, I think doing mixes, especially this specific one that I'm about to record, it's going to be about being in flow. Like I said, most of my recorded sets, I'm prepping the container, I'm then prepping the where it's going to be located of each track, and I'm just going to keep it open interpretation of transitions and all that kind of stuff when I'm actually doing it live. But for the most part, I know what I'm going to be playing next. But for this specific mix, I've kind of left it open because I'm just feeling all outs of alignment from retrograde. I took a little help from psilocybin. I took a little microdose to do this mix to get me in alignment, to get me a little bit more, I guess, cosmic or spiritual help, to almost use me as a vessel to play a mix for healing and spiritual purposes during this new moon and this new phase. And so I'm really excited about doing this way because I just haven't. I've usually always wanted to tell a story, but this one, for this specific one, I'm going to allow just the flow of things to then create the story. And so I'm excited what the end result's going to be. But, the best advice that I can give people about recording mixes is just record a lot. Record a lot of mixes, listen to them back so that because when you listen to it back, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have brought it in there. That sounds a little messy. That sounds a little off, or just something's not right. And so the more you do that, the more you're going to train your ear, and the more that you're going to just know when you're playing live of like, oh, I know those don't go together, so I'm not going to even entertain it. Like, so it's like almost a second brain or second language that you go for. So yeah, if you have any more questions about how to record a mix, how to prep a mix, how to prep a live set, feel free to leave your questions in the comments. But yeah, I am going to be off and recording this mix, which I hope to have at the end of tonight. So if you're watching this, the link to the mix will definitely be in the description below, and go check that out. I know what I want. The purpose of this is there's not so much of a theme other than it's a new moon, and that I would love people to use this mix for a deep meditation, or just to feel better about, this retrograde and all this madness, and just to feel a little bit more calm and ease through this time, and use it maybe even for breath work or an ecstatic dance to really expel some energy that's coming out. Whatever it is, this is going to be cathartic for me and hopefully for the listener. So without further ado, I'm going to go record this mix, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.